In the evening, when the sun sets low and bathes the hills in its afterglow, a sadness spreads across the land like a melancholy curtain drawn by unseen hand. And sometimes a death chant fills the air and seems to linger there like an aged echo of a long time ago, when the old chief shook his fist and swore to bring death and disaster to every white man's door. Death and disaster for them and kin forevermore. When I was a boy, I heard the old folks talk of the deadly curse of Chief Cornstalk, that had come in peace to end terrible war, that had killed Indians and white men by the score. He rode in the fort. A group of trappers, whiskey made mean, jumped him, stabbed the chief and his son. The son lay dead on the courthouse floor. The bloody old chief rose and staggered out the door, shook his fist at the heavens, and this oath he swore: "You and all your sons and kin will pay for this deadly sin. Death, disease, and disaster shall follow you all forever and hereafter. This land was once ours for miles around, now becomes your dark and bloody ground. Do not think that you have won, for this land is cursed from this day on." Then he yelped a final battle cry, and fell into the dusty street to die. Shortly thereafter there came a flood that buried half the town in a sea of mud. Strange sickness began to spread, and when the epidemic was over, 16 were dead. There up in the sky, vultures swarmed overhead, as though in celebration of the dead. Later years, the village people called their home the Village of Tears. They expected the worst, and surrendered their fate to a dead man's curse. I remember being there during an Indian summer, and heard the taut beat of a distant drummer. It was a real pretty day in early November. This is the way it happened, I remember. I was watching horses in the field below, as the horses' tails swished to and fro, as they slowly grazed across the valley floor, like I had seen them there many times before. Suddenly the horses stopped and just stood there. The horses raised their heads and sniffed the air. First 1, then 2, and 4, stood like statues along the valley floor. I sat on the hill, watching in silent wonder, as I observed the spell they were under. I heard a distant thumping, as though someone were softly drumming like I had never heard before. Then it stopped, and all was still, except for a puff of smoke rising from the hill. First 1, then 2, and 4, as though they were released from a hidden door. I watched the horses rise above the trees, carried by the evening breeze. Then the horses turned as one and galloped into a fast run, as though escaping from some unseen horror. They raced toward the open barn door, the drumming softly, echoing across the valley floor, repeating like a huge heartbeat, with each beat a little louder, with rumble overhead, a soft groaning of lost souls moaning, the curse of Chief Cornstalk and his band of warriors.